it is time for another Super Collector conversation. This time, Shane Tippin joins me from Kansas City to discuss his Lewis Robert collection. Welcome, Shane.
Hello, glad to be here.
All right, now your Twitter bio says you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan, a Philadelphia Phillies fan, an Alabama college football fan, an Indiana Hoosiers basketball fan, but your Super Collection's Lewis Robert? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of all over the board. I started with the Philadelphia 1980 when the Eagles and the Phillies went to the respectable championships, the Super Bowl and the World Series. So I kind of, as a young kid, started on that. Same thing with Alabama. Just kind of grabbed a hold of those when I was younger as well, and I've been a fan ever since. Now, Indiana, I was actually born in Indianapolis, so being born in the early 70s, when Bobby Knight was at Indiana, you kind of didn't have much of a choice being a young boy there. You kind of had to start, you were a Hoosier through and through. So that's why I'm a big Indiana Hoosiers basketball fan. And then with I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
With the Luis Robert, that basically came out of nowhere, I guess. I started back up collecting during the pandemic, and he was one of the hot rookies out there. And so I just the first blaster I got, I pulled a Luis Robert out, and it's been great collecting ever since then.
So you grew up in Indianapolis, but you picked Philadelphia teams? No Colts,
Yeah.
Right there in your own town?
Well, in 1980, the Colts weren't there at that time. Yeah. So they were still in Baltimore. So, I remember it was the first Super Bowl I can remember watching, and kind of told my parents I thought the green team was going to win. And unfortunately, they didn't win. Got beat by the Raiders that year. And same thing when the Phillies went to the World Series. They playing the Royals, and so I just went with that team, and it's just been with me ever since.
All right, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I missed that connection. I didn't start paying attention to football till more in the mid '80s, and by that time, they had moved to Indianapolis. So I didn't put two and two together there about them not being there yet back when you first started paying attention. That's good. Yeah. And Robert, that he was one of those 2020 darlings, right? He was part of that hype machine from 2020 that everybody seemed to be going after.
He was.
How long have you been collecting? Did you collect as a kid? You said you came back in 2020, but when did you start collecting originally?
I started around the early 80s with football. I was collecting on and off for a while. Pardon me. I got out of collecting. Then somewhere around my senior year, a friend of mine was collecting. So I got back into it, but it was baseball at that time. So this was early 90s. Started collecting baseball and jumped out of it again. Didn't really get back into it until COVID, the pandemic, that where most people, came back in. So I jumped in 2020 and been collecting it ever since.
I'm curious, what was it, or can you pinpoint something from that time when you returned in 2020 that piqued your interest again, or that made you aware that people were still collecting and that it was kind of becoming more popular again? Was there something that you can point to, or a particular person or piece of content that you can remember that kind of grabbed your attention again?
There really wasn't one thing. I like I said, I can't pinpoint it to anything. It just started. I was like, I heard more and more people start collecting, getting back into it. So I'm like, I was doing it. I just forgotten how much fun it was.
Before Robert, was there any other kind of major focuses you had when you were younger? Did you kind of go after any particular player from the Phillies or the Eagles or anything like that? Or was kind of Robert your first entry to kind of super collecting?
Robert was definitely my big PC one that I've stuck with for a long time. I did a lot of Donovan McNabb collecting when he was with the Eagles, some Randall Cunningham. I do remember when I got back into it in high school with the Phillies, I was a huge Ricky Jordan collector too. I thought he was going to pan out to be fantastic, but fortunately, it just wasn't to be. But I had a lot of Ricky Jordan as well.
A little while ago, I interviewed somebody for this series that was a Von Hayes super collector, and
Von
so
Hayes, I remember
he,
Von Hayes.
he was passionate about Von Hayes and from those '80s Phillies teams. So, what does this Robert collection look like now? The pictures that you showed, kind of in this thread where I first found you or got connected with you, it looked pretty expansive. It was hard to get into much detail from the size of the picture. But what's this Robert collection look like today? How big is it?
As of right now, it's 1,995 individual Luis Roberts. I do have a lot of doubles, but I don't count those. But that's where I'm at now. So I'm getting close to 2,000. Hopefully, within the next week, I'll probably hit 2,000.
What did you use to kind of get your master checklist or the list of different ones that is there a particular site that you use to kind of identify what all is out there?
Yes, I use a trading card database to help track my collection. Unfortunately, it's not in sync. I don't have exactly all of them on because I've missed some of them. I got to go back through and make sure I get all of them. There were some that aren't listed for some reason, weren't listed. But yeah, I use that site to track all my Roberts. And when one pops up on eBay or Twitter, I'm sorry, X now, wherever it pops up, I have to go back there to see if I have it or if I need it because I've got so many. I can't remember each one that I have or need.
Do you consider any card, the one of ones, the printing plates, all of that kind of stuff as part of what you're going after? Or do you kind of add any kind of filters to say, I'm only going to go after this type of card. I'm not going to worry about parallels less than whatever. I'm not going to worry about autograph, whatever. Or are you just going after everything?
I'm going after everything. As long as it's within my budget, I will. I'll look into it. I prefer raw cards over slabbed, and then I don't particularly try to go after autos. I enjoy them, but that's not my main focus. So basically, just numbers, parallels, colors, stuff like that.
What about relic cards?
I do. I have some relics. Yep, I go after relics as well.
Do you have a favorite piece that you've been able to track down so far?
Oh my gosh, I get asked that quite a bit. There's a lot. Some have more meaning to them, than others. But I'd say that the 2020 Topps Chrome SSP, where it's like kind of like a side image of him, the image variation where he's signing a baseball. That's probably my favorite one. I also have a Kaboom and a Color Blast and a Downtown that are up there as well.
Do you remember what the first Lewis Robert card was that you picked up? At least
Yeah, it was.
once you determined that you were going to try to build a super collection of him.
So, like when I opened up the first Blaster Series 2 in 2020, I did pull out his rookie card, and I had heard of him, and it really didn't resonate as much. I'm like, I heard this kid's pretty good. And then the next day, I got an opening day Blaster, and I pulled his opening day card. And at that time, that was a pretty hot card, his opening day. So that was the card that really made me. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start collecting this guy. Never did I dream it was going to be to where I'm at now.
What has been the toughest card to get so far for you?
Oh my goodness. There's one I look at. I don't know if I'll ever get it. It's the triple card with Bo Bichette, Jordan, and Luis Robert on it. The horizontal card. That's the SSSP. That's my dream card.
So that's one that you're still looking for that is on your kind of wish list. Are there any that have been really tough that you have been able to acquire that maybe took saving up or being strategic about how you were going to save up to purchase it, or it was just so rare, tough, you'd never seen it pop up, but finally it did? Anything that you've been able to land already that was pretty tough?
Yeah, I would say the Panini Prism Color Blast 2020. I got it a little while ago, but that was one I had been watching for a while. And of course, when new releases come out, they're a little bit more expensive after a while. And I'm like, man, one of these days I'm going to have that. But I did. I just started saving up and found one at the right price, and I got one.
That's cool. One of the other things that I like to find out from folks when we're having these conversations is it's one thing to go get these cards, and then it's another thing to enjoy these cards
Mm-hmm.
that you're buying. And so I always like to understand, how do you enjoy those cards? How do you display them? Some people use binders, some people use boxes, some people build a wall display to highlight some of the key ones
Mm-hmm.
and rotate things through, so that they can keep a fresh view or a fresh selection of cards all the time. How do you go through and enjoy these cards?
Right now, I have two displays up, wall displays of the autos and a couple of my slabs and some of the SPs. Other than that, I use two-sided graded shoe boxes to hold all the Roberts in, and of course, I had them categorized by make and year and stuff like that. And about once a month, after the month goes by, and I have a stack of Roberts that I've purchased over that month, and I'll go through and I'll put them in those boxes. And as I'm going through there, I look through the cards and see what I have, and I still get enjoyment after looking at them all the time.
The other thing, especially for active day players like Robert is, one of the other things that people seem to give me different answers on is, we're coming on to a new season, and we're kicking off a whole new tier of cards that are going to be coming out here in 2024. Some super collectors that I've talked to love that, and they can't wait to see the whole host of hundreds or thousands of new cards that are going to be onto their checklist as the new season rolls out. And other people say, yeah, I like that, but I get this sense of dread that there's going to be a whole lot more, and this burden to go in and acquire all of these new cards that are going to get released in the coming season. Where do you fall on that tier?
I love it. The more, the better. I really enjoy Luis Robert hunting for cards that I don't have. So I enjoy all the extra cards that he has coming out.
Where do you go and find them? You had mentioned eBay. When things pop up on eBay, you try to get them. Do you use any other online platforms? Do you do the kind of trading from person to person within TCDB or Facebook groups or anything like that? How do you go about acquiring these cards?
eBay is the main one. Obviously, it's the biggest platform there is. I use Twitter as well. I have a lot of friends on Twitter that know that I collect Robert. So anytime one pops up, I get tagged in it, and that helps me a lot as well. I'm on the Discord group that has some Roberts as well, so I get some off that. And I used to pick up some at shows when I first started, but now when I go to card shows, there's just not a lot of Luis Roberts out there anymore. So it's getting more difficult to find his cards at shows, unless you see the ones at shows that are, like really big cards that I'm not able to afford right now at the moment. But yeah, so I would say eBay is definitely the number one.
Very cool. Well, hey, I really appreciate you spending a few minutes today talking about your journey to collect Robert and the passion that you've got to build out that collection. It's awesome to hear that is still exciting for you, and you can't wait for a new season to roll around so we can get a whole bunch more cards. If people want to follow along with your collecting journey, maybe see some of the cards that you're acquiring or that you've been able to acquire, where can people find you?
Basically on Twitter is where I post most of my stuff. It's at SETIP73. That's where people can follow me if they want to see my collection. I try to post new cards that I get every other week, weekly, just anything new. I try and post on there and what I'm looking for and what I've got.
Very cool. Well, Shane, thanks again for joining me today. I wish you luck in the 2024 hunt for Luis Robert.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mike.